Hello, I'm Lyn Jarvis, contributing editor for Across the Fence, and today I'm joined by WCAX-TV's Sharon Meyer for a tour of Cuba. The tumultuous U.S.-Cuba relationship had its roots in the Cold War. In 1959, Fidel Castro seized control of Cuba, and 2 years later, after learning that he was secretly allowing the Russians to build a missile base on the island, the U.S. severed all diplomatic ties. And I remember well the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 that brought us to the brink of a nuclear war.
And after more than 5 decades of stalemate, in April of 2015, Presidents Obama and Raul Castro met to start new beginnings for the two countries that have a long and complicated past. The ultimate goal, to lift the embargo and reestablish diplomatic relations. Havana lies just 105 miles from Key West, Florida, and when the embargo is lifted, commercial, economic, and financial ties between the two countries can resume. The average income now in Cuba is about $20 a month, but the communist government does provide free health care and education. We asked Claudia Reyes what the lifting of the U.S. embargo would mean to her country.
A lot of positive changes, mainly in the health and education areas. Remember that most of the raw materials that go into the manufacturing of imported medicines in Cuba come from other countries, and now they can't provide because of the embargo. When we can get the medical supplies we need, it will be good for all of us. Also, our economy will improve as tourism will increase. A lot of people come to Cuba now, but with limitations. With the lifting of the embargo, they can visit with no fear, and we think it's going to end with a big party.
Cubans, however, make the best of their situation, and we very much enjoyed exploring Havana with a population of some 2 million friendly people. The historic city center is a World Heritage Site and attracts more than 1 million visitors every year. Just imagine what the lifting of the U.S. embargo will bring. This is Cuba's capital, previously shunned as a symbol of U.S. imperialism, but is now undergoing restoration and will reopen as the new home of the communist government's National Assembly. Just across the street is the Great Theater of Havana, first opened to the public in 1915. It's decorated with marble statues that represent benevolence, education, music, and theater. With seating for 1,500 guests, it's home to the National Ballet of Cuba, and before the embargo hosted such greats as Enrico Caruso, Jenny Lind, and Sarah Bernhardt. Cuba's glory days were sensational, with Cuban workers having the 8th highest wages in the world, and more Americans lived here than Cubans in the U.S.
One of the best-known Americans who resided here was author Ernest Hemingway. From 1932 to 1939, he resided here at the Ambos Mundos Hotel, where he chose room 511, and with its warm sea breezes and beautiful views of the city, it was an ideal place for writing. On this Remington typewriter, he started to write his acclaimed novel, For Whom the Bell Tolls, for which he won both the Nobel and Pulitzer Prizes for literature. Hemingway did like to drink, and nearby is one of his favorite bars, La Bodeguita del Medio, that lays claim to being the birthplace of the best mojito in the city. It's made with plenty of rum, fresh mint, sugar, and club soda all mixed together with lime juice. And served up by an attractive Cuban waitress, it tasted pretty good.
Now we'll head south into Cuba's heartland to visit places few Americans have seen for the past 50 years. Our first stop will be Cienfuegos, then on to Trinidad and Sancti Spiritus, ending in Santa Clara before returning to Havana. Built around one of the country's most spectacular bays, Cienfuegos is a beautiful city to visit and a nice change from the frantic pace and crumbling buildings in Havana. Industry includes an important shipyard, shrimp fishing fleet, and a thermoelectric plant. Along with this, in 2005, Cienfuegos was selected as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, bringing in additional resources to restore the city founded in 1819 by French settlers from Louisiana. Before leaving Cienfuegos, we visited one of the most unique ecosystems in Cuba, and take a guess at what we were hoping to see here.
Guanaroca is a mangrove-rimmed saline lagoon and one of the few protected areas in Cuba. After a short walk, we arrived at the launching area. We were met by local men who took us on a relaxing and fascinating boat ride around the lagoon. Sharon and her husband Rainey's guide was Ricardo, a strong man who lives nearby and knows the area well. The guide for Marco Ayala, our video editor, and me was Gabriel, a young man who spoke pretty good English. Enjoy along with us. And there they were, what we were hoping to see, a colony of some 100 flamingos, very pink due to the abundance of shrimp in the lagoon. They are non-migratory and mate for life and have one chick each year. One of the rowboats got a little too close and off they went to a more secluded part of Guanaroca.
We are in beautiful Trinidad now, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Enormous wealth was accumulated by the sale of sugar, and the finest colonial mansions, plazas, and churches still stand testament to those glory days. Our visit began at La Canchachera in the heart of downtown Trinidad. While listening to the conga band, we were served the house specialty made with rum, honey, and lemon juice. They do know their rum drinks here. Our walking tour of Trinidad, founded in 1514, started along these cobblestone streets taken from riverbeds centuries ago. It wasn't long before we came upon these locals who keep their ancient streets alive with the sound of music. This is the beautiful Plaza Mayor, a splendid example of Spanish colonial architecture with pastel-colored houses and wrought iron gates and fences. Moving along, we came to the Catholic Church with the bell tower there to the left. On this beautiful day, it was open for those who wished to climb. And what a spectacular view of the city below with the Escambray Mountains as a backdrop.
Cuba and cigars are synonymous, making tobacco one of the major sources of income for the country, some $200 million a year. Maria has been rolling cigars for 25 years and invited us to observe. After separating, the dried tobacco leaves are set aside for later use. The bulk of the cigar is filler, folded by hand to allow the perfect passageway of smoke through the length of the cigar. Once created, binder leaves are added and the cigar is placed in a mold for up to a half hour to settle into place. During this time, wrapper leaves are selected. They are of the best quality and determine the cigar's character and flavor. The most popular are Coronas, about 5.5 to 6 inches long, and Maria was selling hers for $4 a piece.
We have arrived in Sancti Spiritus that is celebrating its 502nd anniversary. And to get into town, you have to cross this Roman-style arched bridge built by the Spaniards in 1815, located on the banks of the Yayabo River.
We very much enjoyed visiting Casa Chichi, named after Daniel Chichi Santander, whose great-grandfather founded the pottery shop. Chichi was in Spain on business, so Rafael, who has been a potter all his life, let me help him while he told us more.
After this, we're going to paint it, and then we're going to put it in the oven.
These workers, like Jorge, are celebrities in town and their work is known nationwide. Many of them have earned national awards that recognize their skill and talent as artisan masters. Although every generation has made improvements, they remain faithful to tradition, still using clay taken from nearby caves and wood-fired kilns. Tourists from all over the world buy their pottery that ranges from items sold for generations to new collectibles that feature a variety of colors and textures.
We've moved into the mountains of Santa Clara, home of the beautiful Lake Hanabania. One of the best places to fish for bass, and some of the largest in the world are caught right here. But we aren't here to go fishing. We're on our way to visit a family that was given the opportunity to live in government housing in town, but they opted to stay here. Captain Raphael took us onto the lake for our 40-minute ride. He grew up nearby and knows every inch of the lake. It's 17 miles long with several rivers feeding into it, most of them flowing down from the nearby mountains. The few families who stayed often use these taxi boats, and their children use them for the long commute to school. We'd arrived at our destination, and through the boat window we could see the steep path to the house. After a somewhat strenuous climb, we finally saw laundry hung out to dry, and we knew we must be getting close. Around the bend was the home of our host family. They're one of a few who have electricity and are considered well off. And Julie invited us in.
Bienvenidos.
This is their living room with the chairs against the wall, awaiting a special occasion. To the left, the sewing machine, on which most of their clothing is made, and a small freezer and a refrigerator, all treasures in this remote place. By now we were ready for a caffeine boost, and Julie's mother brought out the coffee. They grow their own coffee plants. After picking, the beans are roasted and pulverized in a wooden tray. Then the coffee is prepared espresso style. Steeped in hot water, the grounds are strained with a cloth filter. Cuban coffee is known for its strong taste, served in small cups with excessive caffeine and sugar. I asked Ivana and Daniel from Argentina their impressions.
Intenso.
On our way to Santa Clara, we stopped to enjoy a beautiful view of the Escambre Mountains. Its tallest peak, San Juan, stands 3,150 feet above sea level. In the valley below, sugarcane fields stretch as far as the eye can see. Cuba was once the world's largest sugar exporter at some 8 million tons annually. Now it's less than half that.
This is the monument to the derailed armored train, an important piece of history that helped Che Guevara end the 7-year dictatorship of Fulgencio Batista, ending his rule of Cuba back in 1958.
Batista, supported by the U.S. government, was facing tough opposition from the revolutionaries led by Fidel Castro. In an effort to defeat them, Batista sent an armored train from Havana carrying armed soldiers, ammunition, and provisions for 2 months. At Santa Clara, insurgents under the command of Guevara attacked the train and after several hours of fierce combat took control, putting an end to the Batista regime. And on January 1st, 1959, he and his followers fled Cuba for Spain. This opened the door for Castro's revolutionary government and its relationship with the Soviet Union leading up to the Cuban Missile Crisis. At age 39, Che Guevara was killed, and he now lies in this massive memorial and monument close to the monument to the derailed train. He lives on as a powerful symbol, bigger in some ways in death than in life, and remains an enduring inspiration for revolutionary action throughout the world.
We're back in Havana now, and we're very excited because we're going to be taking in the show at the world-famous Tropicana. Launched back in 1939, it's had an important impact on spreading the Cuban culture around the world. Heralded as a paradise under the stars, the Tropicana is known for its showgirls, conga sounds, and flashy productions. We have our tickets, so let's go in and find a table and enjoy the show.
At the Tropicana here in Havana, Cuba, for Across the Fence, I'm Lyn Jarvis along with Sharon, Rainey, and Marco. Thank you for watching.